so excited for our guest, Thomas, who's going to be talking about all the things, especially happy brains, right? Which we were just discussing before we got on the call. We have 8 pounds of this wonderful brain within our head that supposedly we only use 10% of. So, what if we were to unlock more of that? So, with that big, bold question, I'm going to turn it over to you, Thomas, so you can introduce yourself to our guests and share what it is you do.
Yeah, so I'm Thomas. I'm the Happy Tribes Builder. What I do is I help you elevate your clients so that you elevate your success. Yeah. Because the first thing you have to do is to answer that need they cry subconsciously, but they cry, which is make me great. Yo. So, most business owners, entrepreneurs, CXOs, think it's all about their product, services, company, brand, themselves. When in fact, when you want a decision, it all starts inside the brain of the person in front of you. So we now know scientifically, without any doubt, which part of the brain makes the decisions. It's called the primal brain. And one of the first problems is that it's a survival tool. So it's a super self-centered device. It cares about only one person on Earth, itself. Mm-hmm. So when you arrive, you wanting to get a decision from a person, you are also super self-centered. So you only want to talk about one person on Earth, yourself. Right. So you have those two super self-centered things that try to get into a communication to drive a decision. And that's not working. I mean, 97% of people on Earth still think that we are rational decision makers. In fact, no, we are bloody primal decision makers, which rationalize afterwards inside our brain. And your audience can make a very simple exercise. The next time you go buy something, listen to what's happening up there, Oh, I bought that smartwatch. No, that's a very wise decision, because now I can measure my heart rate, I can get my emails, and you are trying to rationally persuade yourself about the decision you've made. Right. So yeah, that's why I'm coming in. I help people to ethically drive decisions, because there is a whole process, and you can do that ethically.
Right. And in a world that we live in now, especially post-pandemic, but even before, there have always been guides and coaches and mentors, right? I think when I was, in my early 20s or teens in college, I always looked for a mentor. I had my guidance counselor. I had my person that I went to. I had my parents or people that I confided in. And it's such a healthy practice to have those sounding boards, to have people that you look up to, inspire you, guide you. But what a healthy dynamic and reflection, for everybody listening and for this conversation to reflect on you as a coach, as a guide, as a mentor. How are you coming into this, right? And what are you looking to do? And also fundamentally understanding the dynamics of the brain and how it works. Totally different perspective, which I absolutely love. And, we talk about our nervous system all the time. It's all over the place, all over social media. It's all over the internet. Regulate nervous system, do this. So you're saying we have a primal urge, right? And it sounds like to me for more of a survival, which makes a lot of sense, right? We want to survive. We want to keep existing. We want to be here. And if we were to look back on days long gone, prehistoric existence, where we were the lowest thing on the totem pole, and we were constantly in this fight or flight, beware, who's going to chase me? Saber-toothed tiger, woolly mammoth. I need to be in my community. I need to find food. A scarcity mentality. How far removed do you think we are from that? Or are we very much still in that same mentality, right?
That's where it's scary. In fact, I think science has proven, it's not very precise, but that our brain has stopped evolving something like 50,000, 100,000 years ago. Wow. Our body stopped evolving 40,000 years ago. Oh my God. So our brain stopped evolving before our body. So we are still running those bloody processes that we were using in the cave age. And that creates something called cognitive biases. Mm-hmm. We do things that are completely unrational. there have been more than 180 cognitive biases that have been identified up to date.
Oh my God.
So, and those cognitive biases are, I mean, they are playing with us in our brains, you know?
Right.
And just the fact that you are mentioning the fight flight process. I love that fight flight
Right.
process because you just imagine what that thing starts, you know? It's driven by a little part of the brain called the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
It's called that way because it's amygdala. It's coming from almond in Greek, I think, and it's shaped like an almond. It's not very big, you know,
Right.
but when it triggers, it gives you a shot of adrenaline in your body. It removes blood from your limbs so that you don't bleed too much in case you get hurt.
Right.
It shoots cortisol in your body so that you feel less pain. It accelerates your heart. It accelerates your breathing rate.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, when you get attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, it makes a lot of
A
sense,
lot
you
of
know?
sense right
But
there. Right.
yeah, but nowadays the same process runs in the human body and is triggered by a few words. Like, you
Right.
know, when she comes home and says, darling, we need to talk,
Right.
you have the fight flight process starting in the male brain.
Right.
When he says, yeah, later, you can have a fight flight process starting in the female brain.
Right.
And what's even worse is that the human brain is very bad at removing adrenaline from the body. Animals are super good at that. The best example, I mean, I love horses, you know, I have ride horses, but when I look at my horse, he can go in panic in just a snap of a finger.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 seconds later,
Calm.
the head is back on the grass and he's eating.
Right.
You know, when you get your fight flight process triggered, I mean, you can be in your car hours later and it's
Yes.
still running up there, you know? Because I should have said that, I should have done
Right.
this.
Right.
And then you carry that home and the fight goes on and on and on. It's terrible, but it's so funny. But we have to play with it, you know? And we
We
have all those
do.
biases that drive decisions.
I have a pony, my daughter does, and I appreciate that pony so much more for the way that it now that I'm kind of looking at this and realizing this. Same with animals, right? Because it's no conscious thought. They're not thinking about,
No,
what that dog did to him at the park 5 minutes ago. So what a gift. But we do have this conscious thought and we have free will. And I'll tell you what, those narratives that can run hours later and spiral off into all these stories that we tell ourselves because of this chemical and bodily reaction that's happening within us. I would tell everybody on the phone, okay, there's your proof that you have so much going on within you. Give yourself some grace, right? But there's
yeah,
hope, right? There's hope. And another, before we get into what that hope is and the happy brains, you just kind of blew my mind because I speak to people all the time and I relate sort of the fight or flight and the anxiety and what will happen and overstimulation in the world that we live in, right? Dings,
mm,
bings, ings, we have this panic, we have to respond, we have to get back. Our whole worlds have been open up to thousands versus just the hundreds in our community that it used to be, right? Now we are so
yeah,
overstimulated. Our computers are with us everywhere in the phone. Work doesn't turn off. Kids are running around. Nobody's bored anymore. It's a very difficult time. And I was trying to explain that, technology advances so much faster than the human brain, but now I'm hearing that the human brain has stopped advancing so many years ago. And it makes so much sense to me why sometimes in the world that we live in now, through all of these advances, just because we could doesn't necessarily mean we should have, or it doesn't necessarily mean that we were ready for some of the things that we have in the world now. So, with all of those odds kind of stacked against us to be in Zen and very peaceful, in our parasympathetic nerve and calm and whatever homeostasis is, how do we do that? Right?
yeah. Well, the big problem, again, I mean, we have many problems with our brains, you know? And that's what I explain to my clients, you know, during workshops, coaching, stuff like that,
Yeah.
is that you are facing someone who is going to make a primal decision. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand what triggers the decision, and that thing is called a subconscious frustration, or more than one subconscious frustrations. So you have to identify these and trigger these and remove them from that brain. And that brain can feel that subconscious frustration. It may not be able to express it, you know.
Right.
You can slow down the whole thing. Like when you have the fight, would we have a device that runs properly, we could take care of that fight flight process.
Right.
But let me give you a very simple example. It's when someone tells you something and you start a sentence by yes, but. And
Mm.
at the moment you say but, you know that you shouldn't have said it. Because in fact, we have two layers in our brain. We have the primal brain, which is extremely fast. It's a survival tool again. And on top of it, we have the neocortex. We
Hmm.
have when you open the brain bucket, it's the pinky wrinkly part that you can see. And that neocortex is what differentiates us from all other species on Earth. Okay, it started its development when we became bipedal, when we started standing on our two legs.
Hmm.
And as it's the last part that developed, it didn't properly end its development. So
Okay.
in fact, that super thing, it's amazing what that thing can do, but it's 200 times slower than the primal brain.
Oh.
So when you say yes, but the yes, but comes out from the primal brain, and at the moment the but comes out, the neocortex says, "Ooh, stop, stop,
Wait,
stop, stop, stop! Don't say that.
right.
Too late. It's out
Right.
there."
It reminds me of the tortoise and the hare. It's like the hare has gone, and the tortoise is like, but wait a second.
Yeah,
Not how we wanted to react here. Makes so much sense. Yeah, please continue.
yeah,
That's
but the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise wins at the end.
it always
When in
wins.
fact, in
So
our
how
brain,
do
it
we
can
get
never
that?
win.
How do
It's
we get the tortoise to win? Right? I know. That's the hard part.
it's
Yeah.
that's very hard. That
Mhm.
requires that I mean that you are aware of everything that's happening in your brain, and you can't
Right.
because at the decision level again, I mean, we make without knowing it approximately 35,000 decisions per day.
Mm. Okay.
Okay,
Wow.
and I think we are only aware of 0.02% of the
Wow.
decisions we make. So where we can put a little slice of rationality inside our decision.
Right.
So and when you try to get a decision from someone, let's say your client, I like that example. Let's say that you are trying to sell some CRM, some complex software to a chief information officer.
Hmm.
The rational way to do that, like 97% do it, is to say, okay, our CRM can handle 10,000 clients. For
Hmm.
each client, you have 20 type of informations. You
Right.
can automate your emails and la, 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 la. And the
Hmm.
brain in front of you is already gone and thinks about something else. Because when we're saying that it runs at 10%, no, in fact, the decision maker in the brain, the primal brain, runs at 100% most of the time. So asking that brain to make a decision means that you're asking that brain to stop existing processes to make a decision. And it hates it. It hates making decisions. It has to, but it hates it. So you have to come in a different way because the decision is driven by a subconscious frustration. It has nothing to do with your product, services, brand, name, whatever. It
Right.
has all to do with that primal brain, inside that person. So
Hmm.
maybe my CIO, his problem is that he's on the verge of divorce and losing his kids
Hmm.
because every evening he has to stay till 8 p.m., 9 p.m. He has to go back to work during the weekends and so on. So what I would say to that person, when you start with what ifs, when we talk, because what if you could be home every day at 5?
Right. Right.
What if you could spend more time with your kids?
Yep.
Then I've triggered the decision here. I want to
Right.
work with you, Thomas, because somewhere you get it. And then afterwards, then the brain needs to rationalize. Then we can start talking about
Right.
10,000 blah 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 blah
I
blah.
love that. The introduction of a new pivot, like a new pathway. It's almost in, more complicated sense, the introduction of the what if is the new potentially neuro pathway to making that decision. And in thinking about this, it's very in line with, we have over 6,000 plus thoughts a day or more. And in between, every thought has a beginning and an end. And there's a space in between each one. And And yes, it is challenging, especially when you're making so many decisions a day that you're not even aware of, right? And thought patterns and cognitive thought and subconscious programming and all of these things. I felt, for me at least, when I was going through so many different parts of my life, I found that I was almost diving into that space, seeking that space in between where I could, you're crying really hard, you come up for the gulp of air, right? It's your body just going through the motions without even you having to tell it to, right? It's that programming that you have, and it's your mind almost being like, okay, empty space, next thought, empty space. And I tried to like literally grip it apart. I was like, okay, I need to have some kind of just, new thought that I would interject or a pivot or, stepping into the gap and just being like, okay, is this the direction that I'm going to go? Is this the decision that I'm going to focus on for the next 20 minutes when it might not even be rational at this point in time?
Mm.
And that's what you've done with that, that executive by saying, what if? It's like,
Yeah.
what if you were to do this? And then that, a representation of how that's affecting their life and how they're showing up in the rest of their life too, propels them on a path to be, I would imagine, much more successful. Right.
Yeah, well, in fact, as I always say, there is no magic wand.
Right,
I mean,
right.
when I teach people, when I give them the tools of ethical persuasion, because the whole thing is called the ethical persuader system. Um, the tools sound so easy. It's
Right.
like one of my favorite ones is use the you language.
Mm,
And when you write an email, don't say, I am writing to you to let you know that I have
right.
this new software. No, that's that's
Oh,
me
you.
again, okay?
Yeah.
But their brain is about make me great. So you should write,
Right.
you are getting this email because you are going to learn something about
I
how you can,
love
la, la, la.
that.
For example, when you have a phone call, well, in Europe, I think in Europe we do it well because we start always, how are you doing?
Hmm.
It's a cultural thing.
How are
Now,
you?
in
Right.
the US, I know you should not start with how are you doing because no one understands why you're saying that. Should be straight to the point. You should hit it where. But
Right.
no, yeah, how are you doing? How is your business doing? What is going on in your life? I don't know, just making
Right.
it up, okay? But you have this and that, and the what if question is something I also teach. It's a super powerful one. In fact, you need three, and you need a pause, and there are a lot of things
Right.
that. But
Right.
once you do that, you can show to the brain in front of you that you have solved all the problems.
Oh.
Because in one question, well, in a set of three questions, without solving any of your problems,
Mm-hmm.
I'm demonstrating to your brain that I know the subconscious frustrations you have, that I create the solution for you, and that you feel something which is fundamental to trigger a decision, has been demonstrated in 95 by a guy called Antonio Damasio, which is called an emotional variation. Most people think, yes, you need emotions nowadays. You need to make them
Right.
happy, or you need to make them cry and then make a decision. No, you need to create an emotional variation. So take them from emotion A to emotion B. We
Okay.
have per day, it's not precise at the moment, 24,000 to 40,000 emotions per day happening up there. So,
Yeah, I know.
that thing is absolutely nuts up
We are
there.
lucky that we are functioning as well as we do
Yeah.
on a
You don't
regular
know why.
basis. So I want you all, whoever's
Yeah.
listening right now, pat yourself on the back because I'm really proud
Yeah,
of you.
exactly.
Shoot, I'm proud
You
of
can.
myself right now. So
And the
you,
fact that we are still alive, just to make a parenthesis, I mean,
yeah,
if you look at human beings and what's out there,
right.
we shouldn't be alive. I
Mm.
mean, we are the smallest one. We are the weakest ones. We don't have the biggest teeth. People like me don't even have hair. We have a very thin skin.
Right.
We had absolutely, physically speaking, we had zero for us. Zero. We had one thing, we were on two legs.
Yeah.
That made a major difference. And we can outrun any existing species on Earth.
Hmm.
And the one that scientists think is the answer to our survival is that we have a plasticity when it comes to learning. Our brain has a plasticity for that. And we are an absolutely exquisite social species. We live in tribes. We cannot live outside of tribes. So I say, I'm the happy tribes builder. I
I love
need to
that.
get people
Yes.
together and make them happy because they've learned something. You know? And
Oh,
we
so
don't even know
much.
why Homo sapiens sapiens, whom we had the latest evolution, is the hominids version that is still existing, because there were other ones. There was Homo
Right.
australopithecus, so Homo oceanis, etc., etc. Why Homo sapiens sapiens is the one who survived? It's
Hmm.
either because we are the biggest a-hole on Earth and we destroyed all the other species,
Probably.
or
Right.
maybe we were the most social version of bipedal species and we were able to mingle with any other tribe,
Oh, that's so good.
which can be discussed when you consider that when we are in a tribe, I mean, look at soccer fans or football fans. They
Right.
could kill the guys from the other team
Right.
because of the tribe, because you're
Because
part
the
of a
tribe,
tribe, you're part of this tribe.
camaraderie.
And
Yeah.
look at Apple users think that PC users are the worst
Right.
idiots on earth. And PC users think that Apple users are the most stupid ones because they spend so much money. I mean,
So
so
they
yeah,
thrive on a passion of that kind of camaraderie and family. I mean, it's I think the family dynamic too. So then I'm going to take us on a I'm just going to take us off this for a minute because you've just kind of blown my mind again, which I love, is that from a survival perspective, that plasticity and appetite for learning has now taken us and just what is our brain and social dialogue and intrigue and curiosity and all of the things have taken us now into a world where, again, there's so much that I feel like it's almost made us even more challenged with how to function as a human with our just primal abilities. And then I ask you personally, the state of the affairs of the world right now, based on what I feel is a pandemic, and that's just my own diagnosis of the world of loneliness. That we
yeah,
and again, I live in the United States here. We don't have the pan generational families mainly. We're not living close to family as much as we used to. We move away from our kids when they get older. We aren't I've met people who said, I'm like, well, what are your neighbors like? I've never met them. I've lived here for 8 years. That I'm like, oh, okay. So social dynamics with the introduction of technology in some cases has inhibited us where now we're operating maybe through a lens. So I ask you if that could potentially be the basis for how we sustained, as Homo sapiens. Could it also be to our detriment that we've taken it too far and we've lost sight of what it was that allowed us to be to thrive?
yeah. I think that's a very good point. And I mean, you were talking about pandemic when there was the COVID thing. When everyone was
Right,
in lockdown. I mean, look at how many people went nuts
right,
because they were away from the tribe, even though
right,
social networks were running, people were sharing, but the
right.
human interaction wasn't there.
No, right,
One other part of my work is a system I call neurocouple, where in fact I try to understand why there are still divorce lawyers and why there are still couple therapists existing. You know,
right,
if they would have found a solution, they wouldn't be existing anymore.
right.
So, but if you look at
Because
how
it's a practice. They
female and
practice.
male brain works,
Right.
they don't work the same way. So, if you don't understand that those communication parts, as I always say to people, never, never, ever have an argument over the phone. You should at least use video, and of course, don't ever text having an argument,
Right.
because a human being needs to see what's
Yes.
happening in the body in front. It goes back to the primal brain because the primal brain communicates through physiological signals.
Mm.
Your micro expressions, your eyes, the pitch of your voice, all that is subconsciously driven by the primal brain. So
Hmm.
if I want to have a conversation or an argument with my wife, I don't want to have arguments, but if
Right.
there is one, I prefer to be face to face. And the few times something is happening because the phone connection is bad and so on, you can feel the
Yes.
tension
Build.
getting there, the
Right.
stress getting there. Uh, there was no argument between us, but the fact that that bloody thing just
Right.
had a
Got in the
problem
way.
creates a problem. Yeah, it creates a problem, and we cannot see each other. There wouldn't be a problem by seeing each other. So, just as a side advice, never ever have an argument without seeing the other person. Because again, we are a tribal species. We communicate that way.
Mhm.
And the famous sixth sense of the
Right,
women, it's not magic. It's just because during the evolution of our species, the female part of our species is the center of the group, is a social part of the group. So you had to better understand what's going on in the other persons around you because you have to read those micro expressions. If the skin gets red, maybe there is a disease. If the skin gets blank, maybe there is a problem. If there is this expression, maybe there's a problem. The male part, we still are hunters. So men talk in the head because you don't open your big mouth when you're hunting.
right.
The means the enemy or the big animals hears you.
Would hear you.
So we are so different in so many ways. But
Right.
that's how the tribe starts, with two different brains that have to communicate together. And then we have to be in tribes. So social networks gives you the fake feeling that you are part of tribes, that you are the part of those who the Karens who cry about this or about that, or who are against this or against that.
Right.
But it's sort of a fake tribe.
Right.
You still need to go maybe to the pub, maybe to church, maybe to
Right.
the sports club. And there are so many digital nomads nowadays. And I
Right.
mean, we are digital nomads here. We can work from anywhere. We
Right.
still need to go out in
Yes.
town, mingle with other people,
Yes.
have a conversation.
It feels so good. It's so rewarding. You just said so much there. We could have a whole nother conversation on that because I think that is key. And what I was alluding to is part of the breakdown right now is yes, we have the flexibility. Yes, we can be at home. Get out of your house. Walk down
Yeah,
to the shop, go to the dog park, walk around the neighborhood, say hi, smile. Just get outside. You don't have to go buy anything, but just get outside, especially now it's
yeah,
springtime. And I know in seasonal, it can be a little difficult with climates and getting out and in, but now's the time. And even bundle up or go somewhere to engage and interact because you're hearing it here and now. And I know you know it that we are tribal. We need community. And that's not the surface level text, ping, message,
yeah,
DM. No. And I promise you, anybody who's listening, what you're seeking might not, and I'm going to say this loud and clear because all I see on feeds today is relationship advice and dating and this and that. Maybe you just need to go make some more friends, right? Real
yeah,
friends in real life. Like that feels
yeah,
so good, and that allows you to see representations of yourself because a lot of times we're mirrors of ourselves and we can reflect back. It allows you to work out and work the brain and do this and see everything and listen to everything that Thomas has been talking about reaction styles. Get your kids out to interact with other kids. It is so healthy. And I think Thomas and I have solved and just shared a lot of knowledge today, but could be the reason that we still exist today is because of this tribe, this
yeah,
community. And so, as you said, it is almost so much worse because you might get the quick release from a connection with somebody online or here and there, but then it quickly subsides and then you need it again and then you need it again, whereas you go sit down. My mom came up for a visit last week. We went to lunch. I felt like I had had a warm hug wrapped around me all day because I sat with her. I saw her face. I hugged her. I got this time with her, and then I had friends over for dinner and this and you do it your own way. And if you can't connect with them, or as you mentioned, which is such a huge takeaway for today's call, pick up the phone and do FaceTime, do Zoom, do something,
yeah.
especially if you're in the middle and you can feel it, or there's tension, or something happened this morning before you left the house. Text your partner, text your husband, be like, hey, can you just jump on a FaceTime with me really quick and see each other? Because that
Absolutely.
so powerful. I cannot tell you with family or friends or relationships, I have hung up that phone after a difficult conversation and felt so frustrated and unfulfilled by where the conversation went. And it carries on the rest of the day. And they might not be coming home, or I might see them for a few days, and it creates a wedge in between you. Whereas if you're on the phone, like Thomas and I are looking at each other, we can read each other's body language. You can see if somebody, starts to look downcast. You can see we intuitively can start to read each other. It can
Yeah,
diffuse a lot. It's an emotional variance sometimes, which is just what you need at that point to help you proceed in figuring out what's really going on. I love that. So good. Yes. Yeah. So I think
yeah,
definitely
and just communicating with other people changes everything.
everything.
No, I'm implementing ethical persuasion because I founded it. So I'm using it every day. But just last week, I was traveling. I get to the airport, there is that long safety queue and so on. And there was a sign with an acronym, and I had no, I'm curious. So
Right.
I asking the guy who was there, directing us in the different lines. So I'm saying, what does it mean? What does that acronym mean? I've seen it a few times. I still don't know what it means. He says, sir, I have no idea what it means. So say, okay, that's funny because maybe it has something to do with safety. And so he said, I don't know. So, and then I move forward and he says, sir, come back, please. He says, go through the fast lane. Okay, let me open the fast lane for you. Just because
Right.
I had a human connection and I paid attention to that person, to his job, to what he was doing, he just wanted to make me happy. And so
Right.
we talked with the security person who explained us what it means, and she was happy sharing that. So she was very nice with me.
Right.
It's
So nice. People
just
want to
communicating
share.
like human beings.
Yes.
Be primal. I always say, people, be primal.
Oof,
Don't
love
try
that.
to overthink things. Have a primal connection with people.
It's so that is so beautiful, and that will be the title of this episode, Be Primal. I love that because it's right in the lines of self-acceptance. I think we try and mold and shape, and now it's you can read about a million different things all over the internet. You can Google it, you can find stuff. How do I do this? How do I learn this part of me? How do I be this way? It's like you shape and mold, and before you know it, you're walking around so stiff because you're like, I'm trying to be this version. You're like, just be primal. Just be primal. Do good to others. Do well to yourself. Try and utilize those parts of the brain, right? I think there's definitely moral codes that we do try and follow that feel good to us and are part of our core values, which we know and we can try to understand, but then just and
Mm.
understanding fundamentally what you've shared here today is so incredibly helpful because it's like you say to yourself, well, a dog's a dog. It's going to do that, right? It's going to sniff or it's going to have these habits. And we have such acceptance for them, even for children. They're children, right? It's what they do. It's how allow them to be children. I've heard that so
Yeah,
much. I've even said that. I'm like, just let them be kids. And I'm like, well, why can't I just let myself be human, right? And accept all those
exactly.
parts. Yeah. And then introduce the what ifs. And that again too, I think that's so beautiful. And we didn't get so far into, as you said, those three, items that you get into. But I think the introducing that emotional variance. And as you said with that perfect example, with the executive that you were working with, understanding how you're showing up in places is so fundamentally important because, when you just show up as me, I, and even with that email, how powerful. If I read an email that said, you were reading this because I'm like, okay, yeah, me.
Yeah.
So it's
But
really,
I have a client recently. He said, Thomas, wow, it's working.
yeah,
I'm coaching this whole team. And he says, you know what? Recently, I went to see a new client. I didn't talk about our products, our service. I didn't talk about anything. I just listened to what they were saying and
mm,
was asking questions about themselves. And they told me, you seem to be the guy who cares. We want to work with you. There was no product, service, solution, pricing involved. It was just because he got connected with their primal brain, with the the brain of the decision maker. Changes everything.
powerful because it's not transactional then, right?
Nah, that's
We want
rational.
to be
Transactional is rational.
right. Transactional is rational. So there you go. So
And it
people.
costs you resources.
Exactly. So it's when we say that we want to feel connected at our core, we want to feel connected
Yeah.
to the communities, to the people. You're in a meeting next time, you're working with your clients, you're, looking for a coach or you're looking to do something. And while there's thousands of them out there, you need to find the one that connects to you, right? That this is
Yeah.
about you. It's in service to you. And to be of service to other people is the greatest gift you can give yourself and others, right? To get away from yourself, extract that me, because you'll go crazy there. But a primal urge also to support the people around you. And I love that. So you have somebody coming in, standing on a stage and giving a speech, or coming into a meeting, or giving a pitch, which I used to do in my banking days weekly. And if I didn't know the client inside and out, and I'll tell you what I found that I was most successful because I knew them by name. I knew what they called for. I knew what they were doing. I knew what their hobbies were. I knew what they like to do because I cared. Because for me, it wasn't the sales that were driving me because I was never, that hardcore sales oriented. It was the people. I felt
Yeah.
good being connected. They felt good being connected. It's at our core, guys.
Yeah.
Anything that you keep transactional in life is surface, and you don't reap the rewards of the deeper connection. You know? So good.
Absolutely.
Oh, I could
Absolutely.
talk to you forever. This is fantastic. Thomas, you are a gem. Thank you for everything that you put out
Pleasure.
into this world. I can't wait to have you on again for more conversations.
With
So,
pleasure. With pleasure.
yes, absolutely. I mean, we we went through the whole evolution of the species and pretty much cracked the code that we all are desperately seeking that deeper connection. And we have, be primal, guys, and FaceTime, voice chat, wait to, say I need to see you. Go drop off a coffee, wherever they are for this, and just break down the walls that we've kind of that were created around us and have stayed there. Now, if I could just ask, people I know are going to hear this and just want to know more, right? I want to know more.
Yeah.
We all want to know more. We're a curious species. How can they find you? And what's the best way? And again, anybody who's listening, if you're driving, don't worry, I'll share it in the notes when the episode launches, but go right ahead.
Yeah, well, my website is pretty easy. It's happy-brains.com. And you can easily also reach me on LinkedIn. You look for Dr. Thomas Troutman from Happy Brains. I'm easy to find. I'm the bald guy holding a brain. So uh, there are a few Thomas Troutmans, but there is only one bald guy with a brain.
There you go.
That would be me.
Oh, that's wonderful. And really go on, check out the what ifs, look at the emotional variance, just see all the amazing stuff that Thomas is doing. And who doesn't want to have a happy brain? Right? At the end of the day, that's what
Exactly.
we're striving to. But I'm going to leave this with let's be primal. Let's really work towards the self-acceptance. Thank you for sharing all of your wonderful knowledge with us. We really appreciate you,
My pleasure.
Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you.